All right, next we're going to talk about the state of the Chicago Bulls. Not in a very good spot right now. Justin, what do you got for us?
Well, it's a mess. They just lost to 50 Boston Celtics by 56 points on their home court. There seems to be a lot of controversy going on with their new head coach, Jim Boylan. Um, he kind of reminds me of a little bit of Tom Thibodeau. I think the difference between the two of them, well, Tom Thibodeau obviously had a lot better players. He had a pretty decent time in his tenure at Chicago. Um, I think he might have been coach of the year, if I'm not mistaken, during his time in Chicago. Kind of got ran out at the end. Didn't have as good as seasons towards the end of his career in terms of wins and losses, but his players would run through a wall for him, and that's why Tom Thibodeau could be harder on his players. He would have longer practices, like Jim Boylan right now. But I feel like Big Jimmy's coming in right now, and he doesn't really have the respect of his players. So he's trying to be like a lieutenant and laying down the law, but it doesn't work like that in the NBA. If you don't have the respect of your players, you're not just gonna be able to waltz in there and lay down the law. It's not like college. It's not like high school. So if you don't have the players on your side and you're not winning, you're gonna be out the door before you know it. So I think there's a big time problem. He needs to change his ways. I was reading something where they're coming off the back to back recently, and he wanted to have practice the next day, which in the NBA, if you play back to back, that's a no no. The guys trying to save their legs for an 82 game season. They play from October. If you make the finals, June. So you're talking about a long season. Um, and then these practices, what I've been reading into, has been well over 2 hours. So a lot resembles Tom Thibodeau, but yet again, Tom Thibodeau had the locker room on his side. Guys like Jimmy Butler, and that's ultimately right. The reason why Jimmy Butler went to Minnesota was to play for Tom Thibodeau. So, dudes, he's a player's coach. But that's where I think Big Jimmy now has to get to the point where if he wants to be tough, you got to win the guys in the locker room and get them on your side. But if he doesn't do that, it's more performances are going to happen. Because if you lose by 56 points in the NBA, 56 points, that's not on the players. That just tells me that the players don't want to play for you and they didn't even show up. Okay, 56 points, unacceptable. That's like I don't even know how to compare that to. It's basically like one of the worst high school teams playing the best high school team in the state. It just should never happen.
The Bulls have kind of basically since Derrick Rose has gotten hurt, they've kind of been falling apart. Tom Thibodeau kind of towards the end of his coaching with the Bulls, there was reports that his practices were too hard to play. He would play too many players, too many minutes, and that's what some guys were getting hurt. And then you brought in Fred Hoiberg, who was a great college coach at Iowa State, and he just was so soft spoken. You just didn't hear much about him. Just kind of went about his business, and I thought they've drafted some good guys like Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine. They lost Jimmy, they lost D Rose, so I thought they did a pretty good job of bringing in some young guys. Markkanen's a pretty good player. He just hit a buzzer beater a couple days ago. They've got some decent pieces, but I agree with the new coach. One of the things about the NBA, I think a lot of it is just how you manage your players. It's not even about how you coach. You really got to be able to manage guys. I mean, you hear a lot of times, you watch the NBA Finals, you hear Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr, it's not like he's in there at halftime just making a ton of adjustments. It's managing the players, their attitudes, and how they're looking at the game, and making them believe they're going to go on a run and telling them keep shooting, stuff like that. So I think the really good coaches just do a great job managing. And and you look at back to back, especially on a team that's struggling right now, practice is not going to do them no good. You're not going to teach them anything in practice that's going to make a difference in the NBA at this point. He better manage his players. He's not going to have a job. And so, for him, this is crucial that he's got to try to get some people to buy into him, because if not, he won't have a job. He's not going to get another chance because nobody's going to want to play for him. Oh. So just kind of shows a little bit I think it's a little bit on the GM, the management, just kind of overall the Bulls, basically since they lost D Rose to an injury, have kind of fallen apart. So, it's going to be crucial for them to do something. I heard Jalen Rose this morning talk about how Juwan Howard could be a name to watch out. And I could see that. I could enjoy that. And I think Juwan has some, has a little bit of Chicago in him. He's from there, something, family. So that could be interesting. And, but this guy won't, at the end of the year, he'll be done. There's not a chance he's staying.
See, Hoiberg and Boylan are the exact opposite, where Hoiberg, he didn't say much, wasn't really fiery or fired up or any of that sort. But then you have this new guy, Boylan, coming in there, being a hard-nosed and practicing 2 to 3 hours, especially in a back-to-back. Change. That's a complete culture change. And that's also tough on your players. And sometimes you got to let your players do some things a little bit. Like I know the Bulls are struggling. You got to find a way to get it going with your coaching, but you got to sometimes let your players figure it out. And you look at coaches who manage their players like Greg Popovich. Of course he got scrutinized for benching half his starters. But he wanted to rest his starters. He wanted to make sure everybody was healthy. All their stars got a chance, and then they'd come out the next night and they'd rail somebody. So, I don't really see Boylan now. Who knows if Boylan will even last to the end of the season, but I don't really know if you're going to fire the interim coach and have a interim coach come in. Who knows how that could look. And the Bulls are already a mess. So who knows where this team could end up besides last place.
Yeah, he'll end to the end of the season. He'll get through the end of the season. I think one thing for him is that I read into that management is kind of on his side, but we know management only lasts for so long. If you're not winning, you're not getting it done, they'll turn over a new leaf really quick.
I just think you look at it like you look at Greg Popovich, when Spurs dynasty, they had David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, all guys that bought into it. They were able to help all role players, young guys say, hey, this is how we do things. Look at Doc Rivers when he was good with the Celtics. They had like KG, Paul Pierce. They were able to tell guys like this is how we do it. And so the Bulls, like, if they don't have the players buying in, it's not going to happen. And they don't really have a, I think Lopez is the most veteran guy there. And I mean, he doesn't have a ton of success. So they don't really have a winner there at all. So it's just kind of, and it's in flames. And they, like I said, they got some good pieces. I didn't even mention, the rookie Wendell Carter. He's been playing really well. So, they got some good pieces. So it'll be interesting. A lot of the pressure's on management. I wouldn't even, the coach doesn't even matter at this point. It's going to be on management, the moves they make at the end of the year.
And it's just, he needs to earn the players' respect, like I kind of said, and like I mentioned, is that guy like Greg Popovich. Dudes respect that guy. Like, they know if you're San Antonio Spurs and you're signed as a free agent or you're getting drafted to the Spurs, they have a precedent set and a standard of excellence that you must meet. And if you don't meet it, I mean, players that play before him, like Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, David Robinson, guys, Bruce Bowen, guys like that, like there's no way that you're going to go against the Spurs way because we've seen the success, the formula, the algorithm. It's going to work if you believe in Popovich, but he has that respect and the players and know what's going to happen. So, but Boylan, he has to put in the work first. He can't come in here trying to act like Doc Rivers or Carlisle or a veteran coach like that. So I'm not saying he has to pump the brakes a little bit and be nonchalant like Hoiberg because there has to be a happy medium. You can't come in guns a-blazing, but you can't be too laid back. You have to be able to control the locker room, but you kind of have to be a player's coach and be on the player's side at the same time.
I agree. I mean, a prime example, I think, I look at Billy Donovan in OKC, and I thought, I really think he's been on the hot seat, but you don't hear much about it, and I think one of the reasons you don't hear much is that him and Russ have such a great relationship. You talk about when Russ signed the contract extension, there was a story that came out that the first thing he did was go knock on Billy's glass window and like, look, Billy, I signed for 10 years. Look at this. And that just shows, when the best player in the locker room respects you, it's just going to go a long ways. And I think that shows right there. So, with Boylan, he's just got to come in and coach his style, probably, maybe cut out the practices on back-to-back. But at the same time, like, he doesn't even have much head coaching experience. He came from college. He was an assistant, been an assistant in the pro. So, it's kind of a little trial and error for everybody. So, it's just going to be, we're going to see what happens. It's going to be really interesting. And the thing is, they don't have enough talent yet there to win. Like, so it's just going to get uglier probably.
And we know in the NBA, if the players are on your side and the coach is on the hot seat and they put their name out for you, that gives the management more incentive to keep you in the coaching position. Because let's say a guy like, there's been some talks like Luke Walton. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? But you're telling me if LeBron James goes and knocks on Magic Johnson's door and says, "No, I want Luke Walton, my head coach," he's staying as the head coach for Los Angeles Lakers. And there's different teams like that, like Russ Westbrook. I'm sure he loves Billy Donovan, so that gives more job security for a guy like Billy Donovan.
No, I agree.
And something else to add on, is that the Bulls don't have the talent, and they hired, an assistant coach to be their interim. The Bulls at one time, Phil Jackson was an assistant for the Bulls, but the Bulls had that talent. They had Michael Jordan, and eventually they got Pippen and all those guys in there. I don't know if they're trying to do it the old way, get their assistant coach, because we saw what Phil Jackson did, but, Jim Boylen is no Phil Jackson, and he doesn't have the team that Phil had with the Bulls. So I don't know what direction the Bulls are going to head in terms of next year with their coach, if they'll end up getting, another coach who's been on the hot seat, or if they stay within the organization, somewhat like Toronto did. But Toronto has the team has that coach's support, and you look at what the Raptors are doing right now.
Right. I agree. I mean, the last thing I'll say is this, is that the guys just got to slow down, because before Fred Hoiberg got fired, not many people would have known who Jim Boylen is. It wasn't like he was a top assistant. So he just got to slow the brakes a little bit, kind of have a couple player meetings, figure out what the players want, and then try to attack it that way. I think he's just trying to come in here and act like he's Doc Rivers, and it's just not going to work out.
I agree.
As do I. That'll wrap it up on our State of the Bulls, and next we're going to debut a new segment.